I remember the first time I told my family I was going to be a neuroscientist. Not just a scientist, but one who would change lives, who would restore sight to those who'd lost it. They looked at me like I'd announced I was planning to dig a hole to the moon. My father shook his head, mumbling something about dreams that don't pay the bills, while my mother clutched her pearls like I'd crossed some moral line. My siblings, they snickered behind their hands, calling me the girl with her head in the clouds, naive, ridiculous. They told me I'd fail, that my obsession was a waste of time, that I was an embarrassment to the family. And I believed them for a while, but I couldn't shake the vision I saw in my mind. An accessible, affordable eye implant that could restore sight to millions. It wasn't just a pipe dream, it was my purpose. I threw myself into my work with relentless passion, pouring every ounce of my intelligence and hope into it. But betrayal struck hard. My mentor, someone I trusted, stole my research, took credit, left me broken and humiliated. When I confronted her, she smiled dismissively and vanished into her success. The shame was a dagger. So I left. I abandoned the shiny city labs, the esteemed titles, the applause I'd once craved. I fled to a small coastal town in Maine, Hallowell, a patch of jagged rocks and endless gray skies where no one knew my name. I was humiliated, homeless at times, scraping by on scraps of funding and hope. The world I'd envisioned seemed shattered beyond repair. But I refused to give up. I channeled my pain into a new purpose, building from the ruins of my broken dreams. Years passed. I labored in obscurity, designing an implant that could be manufactured cheaply, easily, accessible to those who had nothing. I faced rejection after rejection, doubt after doubt. Most people thought I was chasing a fool's errand, a crazy scientist who lost her mind. But I knew what I was doing. I knew it in my bones, because I'd seen the darkness of despair and I'd fought my way out. Every setback, a lesson. Every failure, a stepping stone. And then, one miraculous day, it happened. The first truly affordable, effective vision-restoring implant was born. I watched as hundreds, no, thousands, gained sight for the first time in years. I saw hope ignite in their eyes. Colors flood back into lives that had been fading into gray. I watched my dream, born from betrayal and pain, blossom into a revolution. Suddenly, I was no longer the laughingstock, no longer the embarrassment they'd called me. I was the woman who had turned her suffering into a gift. My work transformed communities, restored independence, and proved that even the most shattered dreams could be rebuilt into something extraordinary. And so I returned home, not just as Elena the scientist, no. I was Elena, the visionary who refused to be defined by betrayal, who refused to be silenced by doubt, who dared to believe in a better future. I knew they'd scoffed at me once. I knew they'd mock my dreams, call me crazy, dismiss me as a fool. But I also knew the truth. That perseverance, faith, and unyielding purpose could turn the impossible into reality. The day of my homecoming arrived. I drove along the familiar, winding coastal road, my heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and quiet resolve. The town looked unchanged. Weathered shingled houses, battered boats bobbing in the harbor, the endless gray sky. But I wasn't coming back the same person who'd once been mocked, dismissed, humiliated. I parked outside my childhood home. My parents were there, older, grayer, more tired than I remembered. They saw me step out of the car, and their faces registered surprise, then suspicion. I stepped onto the porch, took a deep breath, and entered. Inside, I saw my family's reactions, initially skeptical, then gradually shifting as I revealed what I'd achieved. I showed them videos of patients seeing for the first time, children, seniors, people who'd known only darkness their entire lives. I told them about the thousands I'd helped, the lives transformed. Their eyes widened as they saw the proof of my work, the tangible evidence of my perseverance. But the real moment came when I took them to a small outdoor amphitheater overlooking the rocky coast, an impromptu event I'd arranged. I had invited some of the people whose lives I'd changed, people who had regained their sight. As the crowd gathered, I watched my parents' expressions shift from skepticism to awe. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered on. One by one, the faces in the crowd began to see clearly. Colors, faces, the rugged beauty of the Maine coastline that had once been just a blur. Tears streamed down my mother's face. My father looked stunned, speechless. They watched as a young girl ran her fingers along her mother's face, marveling at the textures, the details they'd never known. And then, amidst the tears and whispers, my father looked at me, really looked, and whispered, "Elena, I was wrong." I felt a heavy weight lift from my chest. I had proven them wrong, not through words, but through the tangible, life-changing impact of my work. I saw their faces, faces that once mocked me, now witnessing firsthand what their doubt had almost kept me from achieving. In that moment, I realized something profound. The greatest betrayal I'd faced was not from my mentor, but from their disbelief. Their doubt nearly crushed my spirit, but I refused to let it. I turned that pain into purpose, into a revolution of hit.